He hopes Israel's strike against Iran is
This is a major attack.
Do you know that on the 26th of October 2024, Israel declared war on Iran? This meant that Israel, with the support from the United States, would try everything to bleed Iran to death, from direct missile attacks to targeting Iran's proxies. Israel vowed to take revenge. Yet despite this, Israel and the United States, which has the most powerful military in the world, cannot defeat Iran. This raises the possibility that Iran might be spending more on its military and defense. Compared to the US military expenditure of $820 billion in 2023, Iran only spent $10 billion. That's 82 times less. The United States spent twice the GDP of Iran every year on its military and defense alone. Not only that, but the United States has put some of the stringent sanctions on Iran, even restricting other countries from buying oil from Iran. All this was to force Iran to stop its nuclear program and surrender. But this has done no harm to Iran. This brings an important question. How does Iran manage to remain unharmed and act like a gangster, doing whatever it wants to, despite having one of the smallest defense budgets and military? And how is it unbeatable even if the United States and Israel have used everything against it? Since the start of the Israel-Hamas war, geopolitical analysts knew Iran would become a target sooner or later. And on October 26, 2024, the world witnessed the Middle East plunge into chaos once again as Israel made a bold and unprecedented move. Yes, it declared open war on Iran. Within hours, the skies over Tehran erupted in flashes of light as Israeli jets launched targeted airstrikes on key Iranian military installations. The intensity of the assault was evident in the satellite images showing the devastation at an Iranian Revolutionary Guard base. Many believed Israel was making the last move to end the conflict. Yet those with deeper knowledge about Iran knew it was the start. If Israel thought it could intimidate Tehran, it was sorely mistaken. That's because by nightfall, Iran retaliated with a wave of missiles, striking deep into Israeli territory. It was a dramatic escalation that left the world watching. On the surface, it seems that Israel should have the upper hand. After all, it is supported by the United States, whose military might is unmatched on the global stage. Israel itself has a GDP of $510 billion, in addition to the United States GDP of $27 trillion. But despite this, Iran, with an economy of only $401 billion and a defense budget of only $10 billion, knows how to handle both well. Well, the answer lies in understanding Iran's defiance, strategy, and historical resilience. This is not just about military strength or economic clout. It's about a nation that has turned adversity into a strategic asset, becoming a thorn in the side of global superpowers. To really understand why Iran is so formidable, we need to rewind to 1979. The Iranian Revolution was not just a change of leadership. It was a seismic shift that created a ripple effect across the Middle East. The Shah of Iran, a pro-Western ruler backed by the US, was ousted after months of nationwide protests. Ayatollah Khomeini rose to power, vowing to rid Iran of foreign influence. The revolution was followed by a dramatic incident that set the tone for decades of hostility. It was the storming of the US embassy in Tehran. 52 American diplomats were taken hostage for 444 days, in a move that stunned the world and enraged Washington. The US hit back hard. It froze $12 billion in Iranian assets and imposed severe economic sanctions. American corporations like IBM, General Electric, and PepsiCo pulled out, and the US stopped buying Iranian oil. For most countries, such crippling sanctions would have been devastating. But for Iran, it did not matter. In comparison, for Venezuela, facing similar sanctions today has meant economic collapse and widespread poverty. Yet Iran was different. It didn't just survive. It adapted and even thrived. Fast forward to 2024, and despite facing sanctions for nearly half a century, Iran continues to defy its enemies. It has managed to sustain its nuclear program, fund proxy militias across the Middle East, and even sell weapons to Russia for the Ukraine war. The sanctions that crippled other nations only pushed Iran to become more self-reliant. That's because Iran's geography and its strategic alliances help it handle any dilemma quite strategically. You should understand that geography plays an important role when it comes to how a nation will act and react in the international world. For example, the United States has two oceans on its two sides, which act as natural barriers while it has borders with Canada at its north, which is hard to cross due to harsh winter conditions. In the south, it has borders with Mexico, the only place it needs to secure, while other sides are protected by natural barriers. Therefore, the US knows no matter what, no country can bring war to it. But the case is different for countries like Poland, which became a target in both world wars because it is not secured by any natural barriers. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Africa's geopolitics, economy, and changing landscape. Let's continue now. In this respect, Iran is not just a country, it's a natural fortress. To the north, it is shielded by the Caspian Sea and the Alborz Mountains. To the west, the Zagros Mountains form an imposing barrier that has protected Iran for centuries. During the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s, Saddam Hussein's forces, despite being backed by the US and Saudi Arabia, were unable to breach these mountains. For 8 long years, Iraq was stuck in a grueling conflict that drained its resources. On the Eastern Front, Iran is safeguarded by vast deserts that make an invasion nearly impossible. But perhaps the most strategic asset Iran controls is the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow passageway is vital for global oil shipments, with nearly a fifth of the world's oil supply passing through it. By controlling this choke point, Iran holds the power to disrupt the global economy, giving it leverage against any potential aggressor. Beyond its geographical advantages, Iran has perfected the art of asymmetric warfare. Instead of relying solely on its conventional forces, Iran has built a vast network of proxies which include militias and groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen. These forces act as extensions of Iran's military reach, capable of striking its enemies without direct involvement from Tehran. It's a strategic move that has become Iran's secret weapon, enabling it to destabilize its adversaries while maintaining a layer of plausible deniability. Iran's approach to proxy warfare can be broken down into 3 key steps. First, it identifies groups that share its animosity towards common enemies, particularly Israel and the United States. These aren't just mercenaries. They are ideologically driven fighters who see Iran as a defender against Western imperialism. Once these alliances are formed, Iran provides these groups with advanced weaponry, including missiles, drones, and rocket launchers, and offers extensive training to turn them into effective military forces. Finally, Iran supports these proxies financially, ensuring they have the resources to sustain their operations. This support has allowed groups like Hezbollah to not only fight, but also gain significant political influence, as seen in Lebanon, where Hezbollah now plays a major role in the government. Therefore, when Israel launched its airstrikes in late October 2024, it did so knowing full well that any escalation could trigger retaliatory strikes from Hezbollah. Instead of wreaking havoc on Iran, Israel was forced to launch airstrikes that could act as a face-saving tactic. It was just to show that Israel could attack Iran. On a deeper level, the strikes were precisely planned so they don't incur harm that crosses the threshold and attracts Iran's serious anger. That's because Israel knew if Iran was directly attacked and destruction resulted, Iran would ignite a regional destruction that would be nearly impossible to contain using its proxies. But Iran's military strategy doesn't stop with its proxies. Over the years, Iran has developed a vast arsenal of affordable yet highly effective missiles and drones. These aren't just defensive tools, they are weapons of intimidation. Iran's drones can strike targets deep within enemy territory, while its missiles can target ships in the Persian Gulf and US military bases in the region. The West is particularly concerned about Iran's ability to quickly produce and deploy these weapons. By distributing this technology to its proxies, Iran has extended its reach far beyond its own borders. The recent missile attacks on Israeli cities by the Houthis show how far Iran's influence has spread. Furthermore, despite facing relentless pressure, Iran has continued to push forward with its nuclear ambitions. The world watched anxiously as Tehran enriched uranium beyond agreed limits. The US and its allies have tried everything, like sanctions, cyber attacks, and diplomatic isolation. But Iran remains defiant. It has become a genius in evading sanctions, thanks in part to its alliances with nations like China, which is eager to secure oil supplies and counter American influence. China now buys about 90% of Iran's oil exports, providing Tehran with a steady flow of revenue and helping it withstand economic isolation. Additionally, Iran uses techniques like wire stripping to bypass banking restrictions. For instance, Iranian businesses transfer money to local banks, which then make payments using foreign accounts in places like London, effectively disguising the origin of the funds. What do you think? If the United States and Israel collectively attack Iran, will it survive? Or can they never attack because they know Iran possesses nuclear weapons and any attack on Iran means total destruction? In the comment section right below, share your thoughts on whether nuclear weapons can save a country from the bullying of powerful countries. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: African politics, economy, and increasing power. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.